So this being the last Sunday of Damodar Kartik month, this is a holy month, the last Sunday of Damodar Kartik month this year. We will conclude the series of lectures on childhood pastimes of the Lord today. This was started by Navadipa Mataji, and I'm just following her instructions, seeking your blessings and prayers as we start the class. We will be speaking about two famous pastimes of Bal Gopal from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, chapter 12 and 13, which will be followed by a couple of verses from Brahma's prayers to glorify Lord Krishna in chapter 14. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, I chose to speak about the killing of the demon Aghāsura. We must have heard, all of us must have heard about this Leela of Prabhu, but it's always a nectarian experience to hear more and more about Harikatha. Every time we hear it, we never get bored of it. So, to begin with, one day, Lord Krishna wanted to enjoy a picnic lunch within the forest with his friends. And therefore he went out early into the forest with the other cowherd boys, accompanied by the respective groups of cows. While they were enjoying the picnic, Aghāsura, who's the younger brother of Putna and Bakasur, appeared there, and he desired to kill Krishna and his companions. The demon, who was sent by Kansa, assumed he actually took on the form of a huge python, expanding himself to a length of, as is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, the length of around 8 miles and the height of a mountain. His mouth seemed to extend from the surface of the earth to the heavenly planets. Having assumed this form and this feature, he remained on the road, on the paths, and Krishna's friends mesmerized the cowherd boys. They thought that the demon's form was one of the most beautiful spots of Vrindavan, and they wanted to explore it, to enter within the mouth of this gigantic python. So this python became a subject for their sporting pleasure, and they began to laugh and enjoy and play, confident that even if this figure were dangerous, Krishna was there to protect them. In this way, they proceeded towards the mouth of the gigantic python. So while waiting for Krishna, in fact, they were moving towards the python, and Krishna, in his mind, he knew everything about Aghāsura, and therefore he wanted to prevent his friends to enter the demon's mouth. But it was too late. By that time, all the cowherd boys, along with their groups of cows, entered the mouth of the gigantic figure. Krishna was waiting outside, and Aghāsura was waiting for him. Aghāsura was thinking that as soon as Krishna gets into his mouth, he will close his mouth and that everyone would die. While waiting for Krishna, he did refrain from swallowing the boys. And Krishna was constantly thinking of how to save the boys and kill Aghāsura. So finally, he entered the mouth of the gigantic Asura. And when he was within the demon's mouth, along with his friends, he expanded his body to such an extent that the Asura felt suffocated and he died. After this, he just cast his nectarian glance upon his friends, brought them back to life, and with pleasure they all came out unhurt. The demon got the opportunity. In fact, although he died, but he actually merged into the existence of Brahman effulgence, and thus he attained what we call as Sayuja Mukti. For a crooked and sinful person, there is no scope for attaining any kind of mukti. Leave aside Sayuja Mukti or becoming one with effulgence of Krishna. But because the Supreme Personality of Godhead had entered the body of this Asura, and by his mere touch, this demon was purified and got liberated. When this pastime was performed, Krishna was only 5 years old. He was just 5 years old. But can you imagine, this pastime was revealed to the Vrajvasis only after a year. That means a year later only they came to know about the killing of the demon Aghāsura. So actually in Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the chapter 12 ends with this question, that why is that this pastime was disclosed only after 1 year? And yet the inhabitants of Vraja thought that it had been performed that very day. So with this question, we go on to chapter 13, where we would see that how Brahma stole the boys and calves. So what happened during this 1 year was that after killing Aghāsura, Krishna, along with his associates, the cowherd boys, went for a picnic again within the forest. The calves, being allured by the green grass, gradually went far away. And therefore, the Krishna's associates, the cowherd boys, were all enjoying and playing. They had completely forgotten about Aghāsura and they were just enjoying themselves. But the moment they realized that there were no calves around them, they got agitated. And Krishna tried to assure them by saying, "Let me go and search for the calves. You don't disturb your enjoyment." Then carrying his yogurt and rice in his hand, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna immediately went out to search for the calves of his friends. Meantime, what was happening was Brahma, who resides in the higher planetary system in the sky, was observing the activities of the most powerful Krishna in killing and delivering Aghāsura, and he was astonished, being unaware, being slightly ignorant. I would say slightly ignorant because he, of course, knew that this boy was a special boy, but he was not ready to accept that, and he wanted to still explore. So what he did was, he was curious, so he wanted to show some of his own power and see the power, and which would help him to see the power of this boy, this special boy who's doing all these leelas. So the most astonishing thing for Brahma was that he could not make out that this was Lord Krishna, as he was playing like any other ordinary child with our ordinary cowherd boys. Therefore, in Krishna's absence, what he did was, he took all the boys and calves to another secluded place. When Krishna returned to the spot, he was unable to find the calves and the boys. He immediately understood that this was a trick performed by Brahma. Then the cause of all causes, our own beloved Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in order to please Krishna, in order to please Brahma also, in the sense that to grant him what he was looking for, Lord Brahma, what Brahma was looking for, as well as also to please his associates and their parents, their mothers especially, by his Vasudeva feature, Krishna simultaneously expanded himself into the exact number of missing cowherd boys and calves with their exact bodily features, the particular types of hands, legs, and other limbs, their sticks, the bugles and flutes, their lunch bags, their particular types of dresses and ornaments in various ways, their names, their age and forms, and their special activities and characteristics. By expanding himself in this way, he actually, the beautiful Krishna actually proved the statement, as the Acharyas say, Samagra Jagat Vishnu Mayam. Lord Vishnu is all pervading. Krishna, who had divided himself as different calves and also as different cowherd boys, entered different cow sheds as the calves and also into different homes as different boys. The mothers of the boys, upon hearing the sounds of the flutes and bugles being played by their sons, immediately rose from their household tasks, lifted their boys onto their laps, embraced them with both arms, and began to feed them with their breast milk, which flowed forth because of extreme love, specifically for Krishna. Actually, Krishna is everything, but at that time, expressing extreme love and affection, they took special pleasure in feeding Krishna without knowing, thinking that it was their sons, the Parabrahman, and actually it was Krishna who was drinking the milk from his respective mothers as if it were a nectarian beverage. Then, simultaneously, he entered the house of each cowherd boys and engaged into different activities that little children do, enlivening their mothers with transcendental pleasure. The mothers took care of the boys by massaging them with oil, bathing them, smearing them, their bodies with sandalwood pulp, decorating them with ornaments, chanting protective mantras, decorating their bodies with tilak, and giving them food. In this way, the mothers actually were serving Krishna personally. At the same time, he also entered into the cow sheds, and the cows they started mooing, and they were extra affectionate. They were especially affectionate to their calves by feeding them with their milk. On the other hand, Brahma, with his Maya, wanted to test whether Krishna was actually present. So he returned back after a moment. 1 year of our time is actually one moment for Brahma's life. So after a moment, he returned to check on Krishna. And what did he see? These cowherd boys were but expansions of Krishna's personal self. In this way, Krishna actually showed Brahma how he expands himself into everything as his personal pleasure. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. Raladini Shakti Rasmat. Krishna has a transcendental potency, which is called Raladini Shakti. He does not enjoy anything that is a product of the material energy that surrounds us, but he has actually his own Haladini Shakti, which he expands into different life forms. So Brahma wanted to take away Krishna's associates, but Brahma realized that he had actually taken away some other boys and calves, and he was very confused whether those boys were the same boys that he saw now playing with Krishna or what it was, and he was left all confused. So this reminds us of a similarity as Ravana during the incarnation of Lord as Sri Ram, when Ravan wanted to take away Sita, and that was impossible. So instead, he actually took away a Maya Sita. Similarly, Brahma also, he actually took away Maya Bhaka that the Acharyas tell us, which were the boys manifested by Krishna Maya. Brahma could show some extraordinary opulence to these these children, but he could not show any extraordinary potency to Krishna's associates. That he would see this kind of bewilderment, this Maya, was caused by the supreme controller, the all-potent supreme person, Krishna. And this also makes us realize that anyone who is materially born is subject to bewilderment. This pastime is hence known as Brahma-Vimohana-līlā, the pastime of bewildering Brahma. Materially born persons cannot fully understand Krishna. Even the demigods cannot understand him. A special feature of this pastime, I'm again repeating, was that the mothers of the cowherd boys became more attached to their respective sons, and the cows became more attached to their calves. So, observing all these things, both Brahma and also Baladeva, Krishna's elder brother, observed that the cowherd boys and cows were expansions of Krishna. Baladev went ahead and inquired from Krishna and was informed of what had happened. At the same time, Brahma, when he was undergoing these kind of realizations, the Lord manifested himself into his Chaturbhuja form, and every child that he looked at was in the form of Narayana, little four-handed Narayana. And Brahma was spellbound. As I said, 1 full year had passed in all these. Brahma then exhibited, Brahma was so dumbfounded, I would say, not just spellbound, but dumbfounded. And he realized that it was his worshipable, it was his Lord, Krishna. And he started glorifying the Lord by praying to him. So I have chosen around 3 verses. There are many, many verses to Brahma's prayers to the Lord, but we'll do only 3, bearing in mind the time that we have. So the first verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, chapter 14, verse 4, which goes as, Shreya Sritim Bhakti Mudasya Te Vibho Kilashyanti Ye Keval Bodh Labdhye Tesham Aso Kleshala Eva Shishyate Nanyad Yatha Sthul Tushav Gahatinam. It means that Brahma prays to the Lord, saying, My dear Lord, devotional service unto you is the best path for self-realization. If someone gives up that path and engages in the cultivation of speculative knowledge that Brahma himself was doing before this happened, before this Leela happened, he will simply undergo a troublesome process and will not achieve his desired result. As a person who beats an empty husk of wheat cannot get grain, one who simply speculates cannot achieve self-realization. His only grain is trouble. Then he goes on to say in verse 8 of chapter 14, Canto 10, Tate anukampam susamikshmano bhunjan evatma kritam vipakam hridvagma purbhir vidadhanva namaste jivet yo mukti pade sadaya bhak. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. Sata samyam sarabhratam Nisargo yadarthvani shruti chetasamapi pratikshanam navyavadat achyutasya yat sriya vitanami sadhurvarta. There it goes as all the Paramhansas and the devotees who have accepted the essence of life are attached to Krishna in the core of their hearts, and he is the aim of their lives. It is their nature to talk only of Krishna at every moment, as if such topics were ever new and eternal. They are attached to such topics just as materialists are attached to topics of women and sex. This is explained by acharyas as just as a legitimate son has to simply remain alive to gain an inheritance from his father, one who simply remains alive in Krishna consciousness, following the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga, automatically becomes eligible to receive the mercy of the personality of Godhead. In other words, he will be promoted to the kingdom of God. This is also as it is recommended by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, chapter 1, 2.4, shloka 2.4. Tasmat kenapi upayena manha Krishne niveshayat. Somehow or other, whether one thinks of Krishna as just an ordinary human child, or as the source of the Brahman effulgence, or as the origin of Paramatma, or as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should fully remain concentrated or focused upon the lotus feet of Krishna in whatever way we perceive him to be. The only thing that we have to do is to remain focused at his lotus feet, at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, diverting even a small bit of one's attention towards Krishna and his leelas and activities in Krishna consciousness immediately enables one to achieve the highest perfection of life. And this is the purpose of Krishna consciousness movement as well, as explained by Srila Prabhupada. The secret of success is actually unknown to all of us. No one amongst us knows what is actually the secret to success. And therefore, we believe, the acharyas believe, that Srila Vyasadeva, being out of his compassion to help the fallen souls, to help them, to help uplift the poor souls in this material world, especially in the age of Kali, has given us this nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam, where we can read, we can hear these beautiful leelas of Lord Krishna. They say that Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Yad Vaishnavam Priyam. So, my dear devotees, Srimad Bhagavatam has been glorified to be the nectar of life, and we must make use of this life and this nectar of life, this life to drink this nectar of life. For Vaishnavas who are somewhat advanced and are aware of the glories and potencies of the Lord, Srimad Bhagavatam is a beloved Vedic literature. In fact, at the end, I would say that we all have to change this body, as is said as Tatha Dehantara Prapti. If we are very mindful of spending some time reading Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, or if we do not care about that, we would never know what the next body will be. At least by spending some time reading and listening to the nectarian narrations of Lord's Leelas in these scriptures, help us to purify our consciousness and to obtain the association of Krishna in the next life. Tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mam iti so Arjuna, as was said by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Janma labha parapurun pumsam ante narayana spriti. If we can somehow or other remember Krishna, Narayana, at the end of our lives will be successful. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.